Super Street the Game. Released back in 2018, this title was marketed as the official game of Super Street magazine. You know, the publication that was all about tuner culture, custom builds, and underground car communities. On paper, it sounded like the perfect recipe. Deep car customization, gritty street races, and a throwback to that golden age of tuner racers that we saw in the early 2000s with games like Need for Speed Underground. But does the game actually live up to those promises? Well, no. You know this series. It definitely has potential, but potential doesn't mean much when execution feels unfinished. Welcome to the Worst Racing Games, the series where you guys suggest different racing games that you think are terrible, then I play them, review them, and rank them. So yes, finally the Worst Racing Games wheel has chosen Super Street the Game after many suggestions. So before we dive into the gameplay, let's just go over a little bit of history about the game. So Super Street the Game was developed by Rebel Games and Team 6 Game Studios. Now, where have we heard the name Team 6 before? Oh yes! The absolute muppets behind FlatOut 3 are also behind this game today. So the game launched in September of 2018 and was available on PC, PS4, Xbox One and the Nintendo Switch, with the game being published by Lion Castle Entertainment. The version you're seeing on screen today is the PC version. Now, just for a change, I'm going to focus on one of the more positive aspects first. So let's start with customization, because frankly this is the selling point of the game. Unlike most modern racing titles where you buy a pre-built car, here you literally start with a bare chassis and slowly bolt on every single part. You add bumpers, skirts, lights, exhaust, spoilers, even small touches like roof scoops. Honestly, it's quite satisfying to watch your junkyard project slowly transform into a flashy, head-turning tuner. In this sense, the game does nail that from the ground up build fantasy. It's the closest thing I've seen to building a car in your garage, certainly in this series anyway. But while the variety of customization is impressive, the depth isn't always consistent. For example, when I tested performance upgrades, I noticed something strange. The cheapest option often worked exactly the same as the most expensive one. 2 parts, totally different prices, but no gameplay difference. The only exception to that rule are the engine upgrades. Those actually felt impactful. And then we've got the bugs. They are quite noticeable, swapping your stock seats for aftermarket ones. They sometimes look like they're floating above the floor. Sometimes the placement of different cosmetic parts on the car just doesn't look natural against the rest of the model. It's not game breaking by any sense, but it does ruin the immersion. And it makes you wonder, did the developers playtest every car part combination? I'm gonna guess probably not. Still, I can't knock the core idea. Customization is the highlight here, it just feels somewhat unfinished, like it needs another few months of polish. Imagine if the devs doubled down, added more parts and smoothed out placement issues, and maybe even allowed mod support. This game could have been really good. Now before we go any further, if you're a fan of racing games, or in this case not so great racing games, then why not hit that subscribe button and tap the bell for notifications to stay up to date with my future uploads. And whilst you're at it, if you want to be the first to know about everything upcoming on this channel, or you just want to come and chat about some cool games, then join my Discord server using the link in the description below. Anyway, that's enough plugging the channel, let's get back to the wonderful, well, not so wonderful world of Super Street the Game. So moving on to the menus and interface. Well, my first impressions, not bad at all. The UI is clean, it's intuitive, and you don't waste time digging for basic options. Compared to some modern racers that bury simple settings under endless sub-menus, this is refreshingly straightforward. But again, polish is missing. Here's an example. I have 2 monitors in my setup, and for some reason the game insists on opening on my secondary screen. There's not really an option to change it. Most games today would let me pick that display in settings, but Super Street, it just decides for me. Then there's also the explode view. On paper, it's a pretty neat idea. Your car splits apart into individual components so you can inspect every mod. It's a flashy presentation trick, but in execution, the animation looks cheap. The car snaps awkwardly out of place and back into place, and then the dimensions just look a bit off. It's kinda jarring and it breaks the illusion, so yeah, while the menus and displays are functional, the polish is once again missing. It's like these devs actually had a good concept for once, but just couldn't be asked to finish it. Alright, well, here's where things really start to go downhill. The actual racing. If you've played any racing game ever, you know that handling is everything. Even an arcade racer needs physics that feel fun, responsive, and fair. Unfortunately, Superstreet fails here, and it fails hard. Now, as I progressed through the game, I fully upgraded my car, which was basically a legally distinct Volkswagen Golf. On paper, this thing should shred corners and dominate straights, but in practice, the more I upgraded it, the more undrivable it became. The brakes barely slow you down, the steering feels sluggish, and sometimes just completely unresponsive as if it hasn't read my input at all. It suddenly goes from turning a nice car to turning a tank. And don't even get me started on the understeering as well. The whole thing just feels like a mess. And then you might think, okay, just use the handbrake instead. And sometimes that works, maybe 2% of the time. It's very, very inconsistent. There's just pretty much no point in trying. You might nail the drift, you might spin out. Sometimes you might just fly into a wall. Who knows? I mean, hey, low-powered cars are somewhat drivable, but once you add horsepower, the game just becomes so frustrating. And that's the tragedy here. Racing should feel rewarding. It should make you want to run one more race. Instead, I just dreaded it. Every corner was a gamble, every lap was a struggle, and that's the one thing a racing game absolutely cannot get wrong. The game also features a pretty intense damage model that honestly is incredibly overdramatic. You could tap a barrier and the whole rear end of your car chassis would just fall off. It's very over the top, and for a game that wants you to spend so much time customizing your car, with the mix of poor handling and AI, which I'll get to, your car will very quickly turn from a souped up passion project to something that looks like it belongs in Wreckfest. I kinda get what they were going for here, but it's just incredibly over the top. So if the driving physics are bad, what about the opponents? Well, the AI is mixed. On the plus side, they aren't lifeless robots. They'll make mistakes, crash into walls, or get stuck behind traffic. That unpredictability does add some excitement. But here's the downside, they're way too aggressive toward the player. The AI will straight up ram you, spin you out, or cut you off without hesitation. It doesn't feel like competitive street racing, it feels like bumper cars. And then there's the difficulty curve. The first race series, a total cakewalk, and it will feel like a total cakewalk for ages, and then suddenly the AI will turn into professional level racers. There are a few boss races that I'll admit I did struggle with, until I remembered that I had free will, and decided to just act like the AI to begin with. But either way, the further you get into the game, the harder it gets, and it doesn't feel fair. Was it because my car was upgraded, and was then causing issues with my handling? Was it rubber banding? It's kinda hard to say. Either way, the balance feels completely off. Now, in terms of the game's visuals, at least on the PC version, it looks pretty decent. The car models are nice, the maps are okay, it's all done in Unreal Engine 4, so it looks pretty good regardless, but the issue with the maps are it just feels like a bunch of generic assets slapped together to make a few different locations. Desert area, city area, country area, that's kind of it. There's no real distinction or unique characteristics that make these maps stand out from any other generic racing game. And the same can be said for the game's soundtrack. It's alright, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just incredibly generic. So here's the big question, is Superstreet the game worth your time? Well, not really, no. This game is the definition of wasted potential. The customization is impressive, but not perfect. The menus are sleek, but rough around the edges. The AI is unpredictable, sometimes fun, sometimes infuriating, and the driving, the absolute core of the experience, is fundamentally broken. And the sad part is, you can tell there was actually some passion behind this project. Unlike FlatOut 3, the idea of starting with a rusted shell and building your dream tuner is brilliant. It's exactly what the car enthusiast community would have wanted, but instead of a polished final product, it feels like an early access build. I'm sure the game could have been fixed with updates and patches, but as far as I can tell, aside from some bug fixes at launch, the game hasn't really been updated since 2018. Now, in terms of the critical and user response to Superstreet the game, it currently holds a 44% positive review score on Steam, putting it in the mixed category, but I'm pretty sure that's very close to being in the negative section. The PC version doesn't hold enough reviews to have a meta score, but the Xbox One port has a 37 out of 100, putting it in the generally unfavourable. Now, I wasn't able to find any sales figures for any version of the game, but looking at Steam charts, the all-time peak player count for Superstreet is 61, and that was in September 2018 when the game launched. So, based on those figures, I'm guessing the sales stats aren't very high. Anyway, now the time has come to rank Superstreet the game in our worst racing games tier list. Now, if anyone at Team 6 is watching this, you'll be pleased to know that I've ranked Superstreet the game higher than your previous mess, FlatOut 3. And for me, Superstreet the game is just rubbish. It has some potential, some good customization, but the handling is just so bad that it just takes it out from being meh or actually not that bad. It's just not a good game. If your racing doesn't work in your racing game, there's a problem. And so that takes us to the end of our look at Superstreet the game, and with it, this week's episode of Worst Racing Games. So, what do you think? Are you a fan of Superstreet? Have you played it? Are you gonna play it? And would you rank it any differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, if you have a game you'd like to see on the suggestions wheel, let me know also. Hit like if you enjoyed this breakdown of the game, and subscribe for more Worst Racing Game episodes. Before we finish, I just want to say a massive thanks to my Patreon subscribers for the support, and the only thing left to say is thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.